Okay, the meeting is being recorded. Welcome to Astrology Unplugged. I'm Rick DiClemente, and this is our regular group. A lot of people watch by YouTube, and if you're welcome to join us any Thursday night, 8 o'clock, if you want to join us live, go to Google, type in Astrology Unplugged. You'll get the link there. A lot of people watch this after tonight when I post it. It's got 225 episodes already out there. Tonight's 226, and there goes Shelby in the background because he hears my voice and he wants to learn astrology as a cat. Okay, tonight should be very interesting. I really am looking forward to it. I want to mention ahead of time, next week is our 6 months alert for Reverend Gregory Keene. The medium Gregory Keene, K-E-H-N, will be with us from Lilydale. I imagine by now he's moved up to Lilydale. He's a snowbird, goes south to Florida in the winter. But he's on with us. He takes a lot of readings. He does about 5-minute readings for people in terms of mediumship. So you may want to get involved with that. That's first come, first serve. Because he'll do 30, 35 people one night. Okay, tonight we're going to talk about aspects. And what I want you to do, I finally realized, of course, I knew this for a while, but I never really gave it thought. One of the reasons people quit doing astrology is they start seeing Mars in Cancer in the 4th house, square to Pluto in Leo in the 6th house, and they want to shoot themselves because they can't figure it out. It's just too complex. And I understand that. And I was one of them. So I did shoot myself. No. Tonight I want to talk to you about a specific thing about taking a transit. We're going to talk about transits a lot. We're going to take a transit and see how do you read it in the natal chart, and then show you how you can pivot it to the ascendant and get a different meaning. They're both true. We're going to get into that. First thing I want to show you is this. In the U.S. chart, I told you about this last week. I told you it was coming because we've been talking about the double Pluto, the Pluto return in the USA's chart. So here we go. Here is the chart, and my phone is giving me trouble. By the way, everybody, including Anita if she's here, everybody be ready for a super bad Mercury retrograde. It's going on right now. Everything I got's messed up. Don't be shocked if it happens next few days, because see how this is the USA's chart? Okay, in the middle, this is where the planets are. Look at where the planets are right now. Neptune is square to Mercury. Mercury's retrograde, 23 degrees, 23 degrees. Neptune is already confused enough. Neptune is square to Mercury retrograde. So, as I told you, here's the Pluto return. Pluto's now at 2629. It's got to get to 2732 before it's exact in February. So it's really close. And where's Mars? I told you. Where's Mars? 2518. It's just past Mercury. It's opposing both of these Plutos. It's squaring Aries. So what I told you was coming. A day from now, 2 days from now, Mars, watch this 2 days from now. 2 days are boom, boom. 2 days from now, it's at 2632. The natal Pluto from 1776 is at 2732. And I told you Mars always hits when it's a degree away. Okay? Now, this can look really confusing, but after a while, the reason I taught you about the speed of the planets is when you look at the planets with a more educated eye, you can see that this planet's going to fly by, this planet's going to fly by, this planet will be years till it gets here. So you can learn to zoom in on things. And especially in astrology, you'll watch Mars because he kicks ass. Mars will be at 2632. He's going to be opposite Pluto, which is already under the new era of Pluto sitting on it. Pluto's gone around once. Here comes Mars. And here's the square to Aries. And here's Neptune squaring Mercury. So what you're going to get over the next few days, that is the USA's chart, you're going to get some really nasty stuff happening at the governmental level, at the national level, and it's going to seem like it came from confusion. Well, we weren't really communicating. This is because of a lack of communication. And that's BS. That's not why it's happening. It's happening because you didn't want to communicate. The planets are just a bitch because they make you be responsible for what you're doing. That's just what they do. And that's just unfortunate. It's the way it is, unless it's karmic. And if it's karmic, you ain't going to figure it out anyway. So you may as well blame yourself. I don't know what I'm talking about. All right. I picked up some of you today. I want everybody to stay muted, okay? Thank you very much. Now, I picked up several of your charts today and looked through them, not for any particular reason other than the fact that you have some interesting looking squares, oppositions. Now, what I'm talking about tonight is this. Let's say you have an opposition between the third house and the ninth house, okay? And the third house and the ninth house is an opposition that has to do with learning, unable to learn, unable to get to college, unable to teach, being really good at teaching, being really bossy as a teacher, the whole theme. Well, that opposition that goes on from the third house, ninth house is not easy to translate, but one way that you can get a jump on it is take any aspect that you got. I'm going to get this straight now. Let me get this right. This is your left. Okay, it's your right. See, I got that. That's your left. Okay. Any planet that you're examining, such as Mars is squaring Saturn, such as Mars is opposing Uranus, the planet that you're examining, you could put it on the ascendant of a blank chart. Because the zodiac, the 12 houses, is a tool. And 12 things something is like looking through the zodiac as a prism, and it gives that information. So if something's opposite, I don't care what house it's in, you can always take the target, put it on the ascendant, take the offending planet that's agitating it, put it on the descendant. That's why all oppositions ever have a seventh house connotation. So you could have a third house, ninth house in your natal chart, and when you want to understand it further, put it on the ascendant, and you're going to see how that, let's say it's Mars opposite Saturn. Mars opposite Saturn. And see, you got problems in the Mars opposite Saturn, third house to ninth house. Let's put the Saturn on the first house and put the Mars over here. What it means is, and you don't have to get all fancy, you're trying to communicate, but something's blocking you. Mars is opposite Saturn. Well, does that mean you're blocking other people when they have to talk? Were you blocked when you were talking as a child? You get in the right theme, you get in the right subject, you start to figure it out. Don't try to figure it all out right away. It's just too much. It's too confusing to take a planet in a sign, in a house, making an angle to another planet in a sign, in a house. That's a lot of stuff. So if you break it down, that you know immediately that when I talk to somebody, I got Mars opposite Saturn, and I turn it around and put it on the first and the seventh house. There's something that when I go, first house, when I go start to communicate with them, Saturn stops me. Is it me stopping myself? Is it my rules stopping myself? I don't know. And I also don't care because I'm going to leave it in pencil. I'm going to flirt with it, and I'm going to keep it in mind as I go around the rest of the chart, and I wait for patterns to repeat. That's how you read a chart. You don't read a chart and see one thing and go, aha. No, you read a chart, you keep seeing repetitive patterns, then you know, well, Rick's really got a problem with stopping himself. Then you start digging into that and you find out not only are you uncovering it, but probably that person is there to see you that day to deal with that very issue. So let me give you an example. I'm really trying to take my time. All right. Here I got a bunch of people here. Let's start with Claudia's chart, if you don't mind. Okay, Claudia's chart, for example. Claudia has moon square next to Neptune. Okay, the moon is in the top of the chart. It's square to Neptune. Now, what are we noticing right away? The moon is in Pisces, being squared by the planet that rules Pisces. So we know the moon right away just from that. I'm going to show you so much from just 2 planets. The moon is squaring Neptune. It's really hard for me to do because it's backwards on my screen. The moon is squaring Neptune. The moon is already in Pisces. And the moon in Pisces needs what? It needs not to be more selfless. It needs to be boosted by some planets in Aries, some planets in Leo, because the moon in Neptune the moon in Pisces, like she and I both have at the same degree, it becomes too much, too soft, too forgiving. I feel bad for everybody. Oh, these people are they're hurting and they're suffering. And, you know, my boyfriend said something. It must have been my fault. Okay? Must have been my fault. Go back up on the cross. Must have been my fault, my fault, my fault. Okay, now that's just the problem with Neptune. And that's an exaggeration of the beauty of Neptune. The beauty of Neptune is you're willing to take it on yourself. Boy, it must have been something I did, and I feel bad, and I'm sorry. That's a really nice quality. But when it's too much, you're blaming yourself all the time, and you're inviting other people to blame you, and they will. Now, we've just taken a peek. We haven't even seen anything yet. All right, let's go deeper into this now. Watch. The moon is in Pisces. It is being squared by Neptune and Sag. And Neptune and Sag is really strong because it's so peculiar. It is difficult to understand. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter at one time was the ruler of Pisces. So this is a very strong position for Neptune, and this is a very weak position for the moon. So it's a very problematic, this square, in a sense, because Neptune and Sagittarius, oh my God, you didn't have to talk then, did you? You didn't have to take that loaf of bread, did you? You could have left something for somebody else, couldn't you? So it's just so selfless. Now this all comes, I'm telling you what, I got the secret of astrology down, and it's the 12th harmonic, and it's about you just bowing too low to God. That's the problem with astrology. You're just bowing too low to God, which means you just keep thinking you're so bad and you got so much to fix, and you don't. That's the problem with astrology and all the human race. So when we look at this, forgetting all that advanced theosophy, when we look at this, we know that Claudia has a tendency. She got a moon that's strong because it's in the 10th house. It's weak because it's in Pisces. And it's too far away from Jupiter to really matter. It's 11 degrees away. But the moon being in the 10th house still picks up strength because it's a cardinal house. It's an angular house. It's the planet that's the closest to the midheaven. So moon near the top, I don't care what she is, she's a Leo. When she's at work, 10th house, people see her as a lunar person. They see her as a sensitive person. Sure, she's very smart, but they see her as tender and caring. And I can go to her and tell my problems and probably get her to listen to me. That's a very Cancerian, Piscean thing. They're sensitive, and they don't make fun, and they listen to you. So probably people do that. So we automatically see an issue because the 10th house is not a place to be weeping, because the 10th house is the place where you sort of want to show your strength. right? So if people see her crying at work, it probably ain't too good. But it does mean that in her career, if there are parts of her company that have to deal with being more tender to the public, being more attentive to the public, she'll probably get that job because she's just really attentive and she's sensitive. But here's what I'm getting at. Watch just one example. So we're just looking, not even considering Mars yet. We're just looking at Moon square Neptune. All right. Now, when you put the Moon in the 10th house, and you put Neptune in the 7th, that's the natal chart. That's very accurate, and so is the solar chart, which I'm going to bring it to you in a minute. This means that she has a tendency at work to be very sensitive. She's intuitive in her job, but she's very sensitive to people at work. And her 7th house, we see that her Neptune is really exaggerated because it's the tip of a T-square. So her Neptune's very strong, and Neptune in the 7th means, oh, just blame yourself and get on with it, and it's really not their fault, making excuses for other people. So she gets in difficulties, or maybe she's done with it now, but in the past, she got in difficulty because she was so sensitive to people at work. And people probably took advantage of that. Now, if you want to inspect this further, because I would say this is really a transiting planet because it's moving faster. So if we put the Moon on the ascendant, and Neptune would therefore go to the top of the chart. Forget everything else. Neptune would be hitting that Moon from the solar. Neptune would be hitting that Moon from the lunar 10th house. This would shift. Neptune would be up at the 10th house. The Moon would be there on the ascendant, which is where it gets examined. So we know that all squares come from the top of the chart or the bottom. All squares either come from the top or the bottom. They come from the world or they come from within. All. So when we examine her Moon and Neptune is at the top, we know that her sensitivity emotionally, when we're examining her Moon, has come to her from worldly experiences. Not come from guilt inside, it's come from people out in the world trying to make her feel guilty. Now, if it were the other way, and the Moon was here and Neptune were here, then we would see that her lunar difficulties in the lunar 4th house comes from sensitivities inside. So what happens with the Moon is very typical with the Moon, is you project onto others that it's going to be just as traumatic for you as it was for me. And maybe the other person doesn't find it traumatic at all, but you project onto them that it does. But you see how the square can be one or the other. If it comes from the top, it's coming from the outside. Parents, job, God. If it's coming from the bottom, it's coming from inside. So that's one way you can start to break it down. So that's just additional information that you can add to the natal chart, Moon square Neptune, 10th house, 7th house. You put it all together, right? Now, another way of looking at this, and I don't know why, but I think I do it this way because Neptune's stronger. So I put the Moon on the ascendant. That's probably why I do it. And the Moon, transiting Moon is almost worthless. I mean, it doesn't do anything except decide the hour that something's going to happen or the minute. So let's take another look. You'll start to get the idea. All right. She's got an opposition from Uranus to Chiron. This is very, very strong. This is why she's a good astrologer, because Uranus at 24 and Aries, Chiron at 24, both make a T-square to Mercury. Is that Venus? It is Venus. To Mercury also at 29. Okay, so 24, 24, 29. This is where she gets her astrological ability, because astrology ability comes from Chiron opposite Uranus. and it feeds directly into her Mercury. And when I'm teaching her stuff, she's picking it up really fast. She's just got a knack for it. All right. Now, when you look at Uranus opposite Chiron, what does it mean? The Chiron is in Aries. So since Chiron represents the wounded healer of her subgeneration all had Chiron and Aries. And the wound that's Aries, the Aryan wound is, no one's ever noticed me for me. I'm pretty cool, remember Aries? Look what I can do, look what I can do, but nobody notices. Okay? That's why at age 51, when the Chiron goes around the circle, when it comes back, that person goes through a crisis, which either fixes it or makes it worse. Usually at age 51, a Chiron and Aries person starts to realize, hell, I'm the one that's not been noticing myself. It ain't God, it's me. He's been answering me. I haven't been listening. That's what happens at a typical Chiron return. I've got Chiron in Capricorn. Marcia does too. That particular wound is, I never get noticed at work for all the work I do. I'm good at what I do, but I don't get noticed for all the things I put into my public standing, how dependable I am, etc. Well, at age 51, it all went round and round for me, let me tell you. Everything changed, and I'm sure with Marcia too, in 2002, 2003. So the wound, when it returns, the wound gets better or gets worse. Mine got a whole lot worse, and then it corrected itself. Now, what does the wound mean when it's opposite Uranus? She's got an opposition from Chiron to Uranus. Okay? What does that mean? It's going on in the 6th house and 12th house. What does it mean? First of all, you got to examine the two planets. Chiron and Uranus. Uranus, when Uranus is negative, when it squares, when it's opposite, whenever, it tends to make things frenetic, nervous, herky-jerky, unpredictable, off the wall. And you've already got a Chiron that is less than healthy because it's in Aries. So what we see with that opposition is she's got this sense of self that goes up and down. Because remember, she's a Leo. So she's fine some days, other days she ain't fine. Then she's fine, then she's not. Then she's fine, then she's not. That's how oppositions work. Okay, now we're getting deeper and deeper. Now we look and we see it's going on between the 6th house and the 12th house. Now this is really intriguing. This is really a God type thing because the 6th house is about serving others. The 12th house is about surrendering to God. So it all comes down to all these years, as Claudia, I would say pre-51, pre-age 51, as she's been trying to get herself balanced out, she's been going up and down in terms of how she thinks God sees her in his eyes. She just goes up and down with it. Oh, he sees me, I'm okay. He sees me and I'm rotten. He sees me and I'm okay. He sees me and I'm rotten. Okay? Whatever. I'm exaggerating. But you get the point of how this opposition plays out in 6 and 12. Now, put Chiron on house number 1 and Uranus is over on house 7. Now you're looking at the chart through the eyes of Chiron. Now we know that she's got this capacity to do this in relationship. 1st house, 7th house. That means boyfriends. That means mom and dad. That means mom and babysitter. That means mom and lawyer, mom and boss. So we see that in all her relationships, she's got this tendency to really rapidly change between being sure of herself and not. Then she's sure, then she's not. Then she's sure, then she's not. And you don't even have to answer me. I don't care. This is not a personal investigation. This is to show you how the chart works. All right. So that's how you're allowed at any time you want. whenever I hear anybody talking, I used to get up in front of crowds and they give me their birthday and I would give them readings. And what I was doing instantly was rotating their chart in my mind. They told me the birthday, I knew where the sun was, and I rotated and I put that sun on the ascendant. Hi, I'm born on the 12th of December. Okay, so you're around 20 Sag. So while I'm talking to them, I'm putting the sun at 20 Sag over on the ascendant. And then I'm putting what other planets do I have that's aspecting that quickly, and I would give them readings from that, generic, and do all right. And that kind of stuff really helps you grow, working that fast. Okay, let me go pick on somebody else. I'm just awful, and I know it. I'm just awful, and I know it. Here's Erica. I'm just awful, and I know it. Here comes Aunt Erica. Okay, now, this is really interesting. She's got Neptune opposite Mars. She's also got Neptune opposite Mercury. Now, look closely. Neptune's almost at 9, and Mars is almost at 11. So it's a couple degrees different. I'm not going to even bother with the Mercury now. Now, this is intriguing because, watch this. I'm born with Mars and Neptune at the same degree. So mine's a whole lot stronger. But Mars, Neptune across the ascendant can be really, really strong. I've seen it be the dominant thing in their chart. I'll tell you right now, it's the dominant thing in Erica's chart. There's no doubt about it. That's how strong the ascendant is. I got another friend who's got Mars, Neptune, and it really dominates his life. Now, what this is about is, there's Shelby. What this is about is when she starts to Mars, remember Mars is, I'm going to go get something. And Neptune is, no, you're not going to go get something. You're going to gather things and disperse it to everybody else. Because it's so saintly. So the problem is when you start to act Martian, the Neptune gets involved and says, no, you're just being too selfish. You can't do that, even when Neptune's wrong. And Neptune's wrong a lot. So you can't listen to, the outer planets will kill you if you listen to them too much. So there's lots and lots of times Erica is going out to do something and she's got perfectly good reason to do it, but she feels guilty for doing it. Now, God love her, thank goodness, when you look at her chart, that tendency is watered down. That tendency in her chart is not too bad because she's got 3 Leo planets. That helps her have a stronger sense of self, and she's got 4 planets in Aries. You see, if she didn't have all the strong self planets, this Neptune would really whoop her good. But she's got very strong ego planets, self-oriented planets in Leo and in Aries. But the difference here is this, Erica. When the Mars, if you just look at these 2 planets, when the Mars starts to act, Neptune says it's not spiritual enough. You don't talk to an outer planet. The outer planets are the bosses. They're strong. So what does the natal chart say? It says when she starts to take action with other people, sharing with other people, or finding her identity with other people, the Neptune comes back and says, well, you're not being spiritual enough yourself. First house, self, other, self, other, self, other. So when you're going out and taking action to merge with another or radiate with another, exchange with another, Neptune says, you're not taking enough action to take care of your own spiritual source. Okay, that's something I'll consider. Use a pencil. But when we put Mars on the ascendant, Neptune goes on the descendant and says the opposite. It says, oh, when you take action to please yourself, we got to make sure that we're being selfless with others. It's the opposite. When I take action on the first house to take care of what I want to do, Neptune over here says you need to be more selfless with others. Now, this is a very not a good example because she does have so many factors that knock down that Neptune. That Neptune is not nearly as self-effacing as other people because she got 3 Leos and she got 4 Aries. But I think you should still understand. Okay, now, Sun opposite Chiron. This is 7 degrees. This is 5 degrees. This goes on from the 8th house to the 2nd house. Sun opposite Chiron. Chiron and Scorpio. All right, remember, Chiron is 2 things. One thing Chiron is an indication of your wound that gets examined at age 51. And it's in Scorpio. The other thing which I prefer of Chiron, I just naturally bend towards the Chiron part that has to do with your direction in life, your meaning in life. What is your ability? What is your hero's journey? So Chiron has 2 sides, very strong. Most people get obsessed with the side that's about the wounded healer. The other side is your life direction. All right. When her subgeneration, and I say that because Chiron only stays in Scorpio, I don't remember exactly, maybe 5 years. Chiron's anywhere from like 3 years to 12 years in certain signs. It really has this wild orbit. So her subgeneration, the people before in school and after her, all had Chiron and Scorpio. Okay, now what could that mean in terms of their wound? Well, Scorpio wound, and you don't have to get into the sex talk or the lust talk. A wounded Scorpio means that there's some question to your ability to be intimate with others. Whether it's your mother, your dad, with them, with you, with your partner. There's some question to intimacy that at age 51, that whole issue comes to a peak again. And that whole thing needs to be solved at age 51. Now, look in the chart. The sun is getting its identity from the 8th house. So it's getting its identity from the us. I have my stuff. What do I have? We have our stuff. The Scorpio house. So this is very confusing because her sun in Taurus is all about I have. The 8th house is about we have. So when her sun is in the 8th house, she has a natural affinity towards Scorpio. And she's already got it opposite Chiron in Scorpio. And she got Jupiter in Scorpio. So she's got Taurus and Scorpio qualities, which are really good to balance out her natal sun sign. But as far as this opposition is concerned, her sun says, I find my self-worth by combining with you. 2nd house is the house of worth, value. 8th house, who am I? What is my self-worth like when I'm with you? But it's opposite Chiron. And Chiron's over here saying, I'm not real sure. So she goes back and forth in this relationship stuff between being really able to be intimate with somebody and the Chiron, which is putting down on it. Now, I don't know where it comes from. Erica doesn't have to respond. That's not the issue here. But there's this dance going on between the two. That's what happens with opposition. When you meet people and their mind is going pingy pongy, pingy pongy, pingy pongy, you don't see it, but you can feel the ping pong. That means they got a really strong opposition, probably with something strong, just like Shelby does. But when it has a T-square, the opposition is not as bad because the energy from the ping pong gets expressed through the 3rd planet. In that case, you see the person with that 3rd planet really strong. And that's why. So what happens with Erica, we know We know that it's somehow with her intimacy or with how she was taught, whatever. The intimacy was off and on. We don't know why. Now, we do know she got a lot of Aries Leo. We don't want to confuse the matter with that. But we see the intimacy going, which is kind of off and on. This could be, like I've seen so many times, something happened there. Let's see what happened there. There we go. Okay. What it likely is there's a person raising her when she's little who's very intimate at times, and other times can't be. Maybe they get busy, but a little kid can't understand it. So the kid experiences it as intimacy's on, then it's off, then it's on, then it's off. Now, what that can cause later in life is when intimacy issues come to her choice table, she's not sure she wants it. She does, but she doesn't. You see how it works? That's how they work. Now, let's go to another step. And I do these things instantly. I do them so fast just because I learned it a long time ago. I don't remember who taught me, but it really helps. Now, if we put Chiron on the first, matter of fact, we're not going to do that. If there's any planet that deserves to be on the first house, it's the sun. So let's put the sun on the first, which puts Chiron on the seventh. Okay? Which means I got a pretty healthy sense of who I am. The sun is here, but the Chiron's over here. So what that means is she, out of nowhere, she wonders where she gets this tendency to feel pretty much okay about herself. But you, I'm kind of concerned about. I don't see you committing here. What's going on? You're not committing enough. Now, if any of this makes sense to you, Erica, this is where it's coming from. And I'm not pretending to sit here and have it nailed down. But you see how you get additional information by putting the planet closest to the sun on the first house and put the other planet opposite. Now, does this make any sense to you?
It does. I had a very close relationship with my dad, but sometimes he wouldn't be present. And my mom was very kind of cerebral, and I wanted the intimacy with her, but she just had such a different personality from me. She was always, cool and cerebral. So I never really felt that from her. Aquarius,
yeah,
and my dad was a Pisces.
That's very Aquarian, yes.
And my dad was a Pisces. So
yeah,
he
they can
was
love
to
you.
everybody.
They come across as cool and cerebrals, right?
Yeah,
so
what? Then sometimes they just let me down,
Well, what happens?
So it was back and forth, back and forth.
What happens, Erica, to the child? The child experiences this as the world is inconsistent and children don't have strength. So the child accuses themselves of being the problem. I'm inconsistent. What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with a child at all. But you see how this whole dynamic works.
And they wouldn't let me talk either. They always said children and fish have no voice.
Yeah, well, that's just
shut up. I was from that generation. My parents were from the great generation. They went through hell. It's like, stop belly aching.
Well, that's just ridiculous. And it really, if you dig deeply, like if I had you in my office and we got into a 2-hour intense reading, what we would find out is this, and I'm assured of this. Your parents played out the role. They played out a role of this similar theme that's been happening to you through many lifetimes. And in my experience, what I'm finally finding out is this is how you played the game with God. In other words, you got intimate with him, then you didn't. Then you went, then you didn't. Then you went, and you didn't. I mean, astrology is built on this neurotic didn't. It just goes on everywhere. But that's what you'll find out in your later years as you get past your second Saturn return and you get deeper into your spiritual work. You'll find out that your mom and dad were just playing a role. And what this role is all about is to teach you that you were the one who was turning God off and on. Okay? That's my perception. Take it for what it's worth. But thank you. That was a very...
I wanted to be a nun until I stayed after school once and saw how they were treating each other when nobody was around. And I lost my, my whole romance with that.
Well,
and I've always been searching for that sort of peace and community.
Yeah, well, your answer is very simple. Your answer is
and I found it with astrologers.
Your answer is, are you going to commit or not? That's your answer. Now, when you commit to God, that doesn't mean you have to go in all in. That doesn't mean you have to move to the mountaintop. But at least he puts it in the proper perspective. And I think this was a really good example of how a solar chart can really help you clearly see a chart. Now, you also, I have talked to you about it before. I don't want to get into it now, but after I move on to somebody else, I want you to go back to your age 51. And I want you to see how all kinds of situations happen to bring that whole thing to resolution around 51 years of age, because that's when Chiron returns. Thank you, Erica, very much.
Thank you very much, Rick. That was so insightful. Thank you.
Very good, very good. Okay, you guys learning from this? This is the year. I got John one. It's like imperceptible. Okay, so I mean, I can be just nuts to live with because I see this stuff happening all the time in everything. And I'm sure it's crazy. And thank God I got an astrologer for a roommate girlfriend. But when squares are happening, I instantly think, oh, somebody tells me, oh, I'm born on November 7th. Well, I automatically know their sun is around 14 Scorpio, and I automatically know that Uranus is opposite right now. That's all I got to hear. I'm born on November 3rd, November 1st. Okay, their sun is about 12 or so of Scorpio, which is where Uranus is at, 12 of Taurus. So I'm expecting chaos, craziness in their relationship. And I tell them, is that going on? They go, oh, yeah, man, as if the relationship is doing it. It's not the relationship. It's happening inside of you. It's that part of you that's coming out of you that wants to be balanced. And it's not easy to balance everything. Okay. When I hear people talk, for instance, somebody says to me, I'm a Libra, and I'm born about the 17th of October. My mind instantly goes, 24 Libra. You said 7 usually. 24 Libra. Put 24 Libra on the ascendant, right? Where is all the Capricorn stuff right now? Boing! Coming from the bottom of the chart in Capricorn. That's why you're moving. That's why you're renovating. That's why you just ripped down your house. That's why you're having pipes leaking. That's why you're moving. That's why you're demolishing an old house. That's why you have to go back to your dad's house and resolve things. Home stuff. It's coming from the 4th. It's that quick. That's how fast you can do it. Remember, all squares are coming from the top or the bottom. They're coming from the top. They're coming from social pressure, what looks like outer pressure. They're coming from the bottom. They're coming from inside me. All right, let's move on. I'm glad to look and see that it's still recording. That makes me feel good. Let's go back to this chart and look at Anita. Let's see what we find in Anita's chart. First, we want to ask her, you feel better today?
Oh, I'm doing better tonight. Thank you. Yeah. My toes not doing so great, but my head's way better. Thank you
I'm
so much.
glad. She broke her toe today, trying to tell a door to open up with her toe. You poor thing.
It's worked before.
Yeah, it did. It doesn't work when something Neptune's coming out of places. Okay, let's take a look here. Look at this, how fascinating this is. Let's just look at something simple. Okay, Neptune is squaring Mercury. When Neptune is, well, let's do the right one here. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, let's do it this way. Neptune's at 23, and it's squaring her natal Uranus, which is at 23. So this is a big deal. Now, everybody in her class had this because Neptune moves very closely, slowly. This is why you got to learn the speed of the planets. Everybody in her high school, year or two before her, all had Neptune around 23, 22, 21, 24. Okay? And they all had Uranus around 2019, 2023. So everybody in her class had Neptune square Uranus. And if you talk to a teacher years later, and she looks back and says, oh, yeah, that class of 1973 or whatever, they had these certain qualities, and they're going to describe Neptune square Uranus to you. All right. Typically, what this means, these are two very powerful outer planets. Of course, Neptune is the boss. And what happens when Neptune squares Uranus? When Neptune squares Uranus, Uranus is that part of you who wants to be an individual. It wants to be, I'm me, and look, I get to do my thing. And Neptune could care less about your thing. Your thing is an illusion. Because Neptune is only our thing. And that's it. Neptune is one thing. This cat, I think this cat is an Aries here. Marcia, what sign is your cat? I don't hear you. Okay. That's all right. Okay. So when Neptune squares Uranus, you've got an innate battle going on because the orb is really close. Orb is everything. It's not 7 degrees, it's 1 degree, less than 1 degree. All right? You got an innate battle between the selfless part and the part that I want to do my thing. Do my thing for everybody, do it for me. Everybody for me. You got a real conflict going on in this chart. Now, let's take a look at the chart. In the natal chart, Neptune's at the mid of it, so Neptune's really strong, which means she's got a lot of devotion to God. I don't care what you call it, that's what it is. She's got a lot of calling. She's being called to be very spiritual. It's really strong, and it's in Libra. And the Uranus over here, which is a brilliant planet, and it is next to Mercury. And this is a symbol of genius. This is a symbol of somebody very smart, very quick. It is 9 degrees apart, but it's still very strong. So we're going to look just at 2 places, the Uranus and the Neptune. So when she is out in the world, she's being very selfless, and she's got Saturn and Scorpio too. So she's got a strong Saturn. These are both at the tip of T-squares. So she's got a real strong sense of, I will never betray other people. Then you look back here, and this planet is saying, well, I want to go do my thing. When I'm with you, I'm still doing my thing. When I'm with you, I'm doing my thing. Well, you can't be doing your thing and be selfless at the same time. Okay, so we see where the problem exists, where the problem is stated. This all, again, is 12th harmonic in your God attitude. So the slower moving planet, believe it or not, is Uranus, which puts Neptune at the 4th. If you put Uranus all the way around the 1st, then Neptune is hitting, and then Uranus, I'm sorry, wait a minute, let me get this right. If you put Neptune down here and Uranus goes here, then Neptune is hitting Uranus through the Uranian 4th house. Neptune is hitting Uranus from the Uranian fourth house through the eyes of Uranus. So when she thinks about how Uranus on the first, when she thinks about what do Uranus on the first, when she thinks about her own individuality, am I doing my thing in life? Neptune in the fourth says, oh yeah, well, you can do that stuff later because you got devotion to the family roots, to mama. And Uranus is over here saying, yeah, but I want to do my thing and all this stuff. And see, I want to go out and, I got these cool things I got an idea for. And then Neptune's down in that. And then she said, yeah, okay, fine, when you're done. But you got all this stuff to do. You got all this stuff to do, raising these kids and doing all this stuff. So you see where the fourth house pressure comes from Neptune, even though it's not in the fourth house. And I'm sure that makes sense, Miss Anita.
It makes a lot of sense, Greg.
Yeah. Now, it didn't come out of nowhere. It came from and I think it's everybody, it's not just you. It came from your misread about taking this new lifetime, because I'm sensing in this lifetime that we all made a misread when we, just by the definition of taking a new lifetime. In other words, you didn't have to. We all think we did because we can make up all this mea culpa, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yep.
But anyhow, it can really help explain where this over sense of responsibility comes from, because Neptune is just really a tough boss. Because if you listen to it, it just doesn't want excuses.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like going to Jesus and asking for a day off. Well, I don't think you're going to get the day off. What did he tell his disciples? He told, you are my chosen ones. Go home and say goodbye to your families forever because your job is with me. That's a hell of a thing to say. Say bye forever. You're not going to see them again. But that's coming from a real high place. Okay, but you get the idea. Now, when you do astrology long enough, what you start to learn is all these planets can be blended. So you can start to see, for example, in your chart, if you're too selfless to the family, there isn't a self around to enjoy. People really aren't enjoying you because there's nobody there because you're being so selfish by your devotion to this idea or ideal. And the Uranus is likewise. The Uranus is not happy when it's just always doing for itself. There's no happiness in that unless you start to merge and gel. So we start to see, when we get to higher astrology, that Neptune and Uranus can really blend. In other words, I'm going to give in and love you and give to you, but at the same time, I'm going to keep myself in mind. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to go fishing with Jesus if he's sitting there all day making sure the fish are on my line, right? I want him to catch some too, then it feels normal. Get the idea.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go onward and upward. Okay, we're going to look at Ray's chart. I just picked some people out tonight. You see, I do these solar things so fast, I don't even think about it. And like I told you, guy comes to fix a pipe in my house. We start talking. I'm an astrologer. Oh yeah. And I say, what's your birthday? And he says, oh, I'm a Capricorn or whatever. And I'll say, what's your birthday? And he'll say, well, I'm about the 10th of January. I say, okay. And then I got the sun at 17 degrees Capricorn. So I know exactly when Pluto went over his sun. And I say to him, oh, well, you had to deal with all your pipes about 4 years ago. It's crazy, huh? Whole house exploded, didn't it? Yeah. How do you know? And there's no magic. It's just a solar charm. It's just a solar charm. Okay, because you know, that's why when you know the outer four planets and you utilize that cross, you see the cross journey and you can see when it's hitting. All right. Let's look at anybody. Oh, I didn't do Linda here. Let me stop this. I'm so sorry. Oh, whatever. You got the message. All right. Let's see what Linda. All right. Okay, we're continuing with Linda's chart. Libra. All right. I didn't intend to get to everybody's chart, but it looks that way, so we'll just go with it. Well, this is really intriguing. Let's take a look at this. This is real obvious to me. In Linda's chart, you've got everything sitting on Jupiter opposite Saturn. Okay, and I've got it myself. Jupiter, I got Jupiter square Saturn. No, I got the opposition. Okay, so you've got an 8-degree, 9-degree Jupiter, and you've got a 6-degree Saturn. Now, when you look at it first thing you do is translate what does the aspect mean. Secondly, look at it in its native houses. Then look at it in its rotated houses. Jupiter in the 5th house in Aries, next to Eris, is really powerful. This means she's super, super enthusiastic. She's just really super enthusiastic as she sits there year after year after year working with her basketball team. That's not a Libra thing. That's a Jupiter and Aries thing. So she got Jupiter in the 5th, which is recreation and having fun and doing things and being creative. Opposite Saturn, and Saturn's near the Sun, and Saturn's near Mercury, and it's in Libra. And she's one of these rare people who have the Sun between Saturn and Neptune. I'm going to take a second here to explain that. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction in the early 50s is very difficult to translate. I see it all the time. People in early 50s, you got it 6, you got it 10, you got it 18. 4 degrees on one side, 8 degrees on the other. So it's not exact, but you got the Sun in between. Now, I have seen Libras that have the Sun between these two planets, one representing reality, one representing unreality. Form, no form. Things, no things. I've seen people with planets between these two planets that just walk around. They don't know what the hell's real, whether they're real or what. I've seen it be very difficult on some people. Now, luckily, she's got a very strong Mars, Venus at the top. The Pluto in Leo is very strong. It exactly squares the ascendant at 20, and the moon in Scorpio is rising. And the Jupiter is strong. So she has a tendency to get lost in selflessness, but these other planets really help, very much like Erica's chart. So I wanted to do a side note there. Now, she's got Jupiter in Aries. This is, I'm going to just really jump in and I'm going to express myself. 5th house. I'm just going to go out and do it. And Saturn over here says, oh boy, look at this, 8 degrees, 9 degrees. So it's off by 3, 6 and 9. And this is very powerful Jupiter with Eris. I'm just going to go do it. Saturn says, no. We got to be cool here. We can't just jump out and do it. We can't just be that, drastic about it. Oh yeah, let's just go do it. Oh no, let's not. Let's think of the group. Think of the group. Think of the spirituality and the emotional, spiritual health of the group. Oh yeah, but I'm just going to do it. Oh no, you're not. Okay, back and forth. Okay, so that tells you what that does. Now, when you rotate it, Jupiter goes on the ascendant, Saturn goes on the descendant. Okay, Miss Linda, Jupiter's on the ascendant, Saturn's on the descendant. So you end up finding out something very similar. Jupiter in the 1st house, I want to just go do it. Saturn's over there on the 7th. Oh no, I got to consider everybody else's opinion. Plus, I'm a Libra. So this whole thing, so in your case, putting Jupiter on the ascendant doesn't tell us much. But what's intriguing about this is very naturally the Libra argument to begin with existentially. Because the Libra is what? Opposite Aries. Aries is about, I'm going to go do it. Saturn says, we're going to do it. See what I mean? Linda, your idea? What you're hearing? Let me get you, okay, now you can unmute. What are your thoughts on what you heard?
Well, it makes perfect sense. I mean, that if I'm going to have an opposition like that it would be Aries Libra. I mean, it just, it just makes perfect sense to me.
So the Jupiter is this impulse to go do your thing. And the Libra impulse is not. The Libra impulse is, I need a partner to do it. That's frankly what it is. And it doesn't do that out of altruism either.
Well,
it does it out of uncertainty.
Well, I think one of the things that astrology has done for me is that it's made me, look at that urge and then say to myself, I think I'd rather listen to some other planets. There's some other planets saying a better story that, that sometimes you can't do exactly what you want to do. Sometimes you do have obligations, but there has to be the balance. You have to be the balance there,
Well, that's why you got the Libra scales there. You are fortunate because I've seen a lot of trouble with people with the sun between Saturn and Neptune, and you're not one of them. And I'm sure it's giving you some trouble, but you got a lot of strength in the chart to help it out. Now, the good side is if you can reside between Saturn and Neptune, that's usually really good musically. It's also usually really good philosophically, because on one hand, you can look to your right and see all of the unboundedness of the sky and the ocean. And back here, you look to the left and you can see the hardcore definitions of the Earth's borders. And you can see both. So that's you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a higher dimension.
That's right.
When I was living in let's say my 20s and 30s and even early 40s, where it was all about where is the partner,
yeah.
And once I sort of like put that part of it behind me, then I could like look at those pieces in a different way. And
yeah, that's very good. Now I want to say something about that. Then I'm going to get to John. I've done a lot of study on this here. Where is the partner? Okay. Partnering for a Libra is about sounding board. They need to partner, not necessarily to get to know that person real well or to get really intimate like in Scorpio. It's to have this sounding board. And it's because you've got 6 signs before it that have not done any sounding board work. And the soul has to test itself out in the world. How am I doing out here? So very much the partner to a Libra is very much useful to the Libra because it gets a clear reflection of itself. And that's the main reason. And that's what Scorpio picks up on. And Scorpio says, well, that's all well and good, but I want to get deeper and deeper. Very good. Thank you very much, Linda. And I gave you some food for thought. And now Dr. John. Okay, I call him doctor because I'm allowed to, and I'll call him doctor. I'm asking to unmute you and see what happens there. All right. I had you on here, and I got and missed you. All right. Okay, we're back with John now. Okay, John, let's take a look at your chart.
Okay.
All right. Now, it's my habit to to want to look at the base of a T-square, but I may not do that. I don't know. The Pluto is so interesting here. Pluto is so dominant. This Pluto is so scorpionic. It's about as scorpionic as these 6 planets, these 5 planets are Geminian. So you're pretty much on one hand Gemini, on the other Scorpio. And that's a really nice combination. Let's take a look here. Okay, Neptune square to Mercury. Neptune square to Mercury. All right, let's take a look at this. Very important. He's ruled by Neptune. I'm sorry. He's ruled by Mercury. He's a Gemini. He's being squared by Neptune. Neptune's in the 3rd house in Virgo. Neptune's in the 3rd house in Virgo, which is a real oxymoron because Neptune's not picky at all and is in the sign of Virgo. So that's real bizarre. But that's what your generation before mine had, Neptune and Virgo. So it's a real stress towards purity. Real stress towards purity. And it squares your Mercury and Gemini. Your Mercury and Gemini could care less about purity. It's not that it's impure, it's just interested in everything. Even the impure, the pure, the impure, and the ones that are both and ones that are neither. It's just interested in stuff. It's the way it goes. And your Mercury, forgetting everything else, your Mercury's in the 11th house. And that's the house where you go out with people and groups and you do searching. So you take that Gemini need to search and explore and combine it with the whole thing doing it with groups, and you just love it. You just love this searching the weeds with your machete, with all these other people with their machete. Just love it. But Neptune's squaring it. And Neptune is saying to you, I don't want you just out knocking the weeds down. I want you to find stuff that's useful for people. Because Neptune's always fighting to advance the greater soul. So that's what we get from the 3rd house and the 11th house. You get this desire to search with groups, and it's Neptune in the 3rd house, which means how your mind works. So whatever you're finding, come back, please, and report all your findings so that we can use it with all people on the planet. So that's where that comes from, the natal chart. Now we put Mercury on the ascendant. Boom. Now Neptune goes to the 4th house. Boom. So now Mercury's in the 1st house, which is a really strong, powerful need to be inquisitive. Why? Because you're learning about you. When you learn about it and about stuff, and you learn to talk, you're learning more about you. And it just goes on and on, this incessant need. Never mind that it's next to Jupiter. So this Mercury is really powerful, learning how does John's brain work. Now Neptune's coming from the 4th house. It's not coming from the 10th house. The other square, it's coming from the bottom. So coming from the bottom of the chart, it's saying to you, fine, you go out and learn all that stuff, et cetera, and you bring it home so I can use it in my emotional nest. That's what the 4th house is. It's your emotional nest, my heart. That's what it is. If it were in the 10th house, it would be different. It would be somewhere out in the world. So your chart, you've got the Mercury on the ascendant, which is this really strong need to go explore for your own growth, and Neptune down at the bottom. So it ends up being, it can actually end up being pretty harmonious because we notice that squares that take place between mutable signs are not that big of a deal as compared to squares between cardinal signs or fixed signs. Then the argument gets much stricter, stronger. So whatever you say, you've got this burning need to keep learning, and this other thing inside you that sometimes appears to conflict because it wants to be used for the masses. And Gemini is not a sign of the masses. It just isn't. It's a sign of the individual that's learning. But you're different because you got the Pluto rising. So we know that you're very sensitive to the collective and the needs of. Now, what you think about those marbles?
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's my personality.
Okay, so when you use the solar chart, that's when you really find out a lot about your personality. So it comes from. Before the show, John was asking me, how the hell does this stuff work? These planets out there, how do they make these things work? I don't know, but I did give him a thought I had years ago. And if you try to explain to somebody how astrology works, man, good luck, because it's difficult. And I will tell you what I came up with years ago. If you were an observation platform and you were looking down into a room that had 3x4 square tiles, 12 tiles, and there were all these ants on these tiles, and the motor's running all the time, and you're photographing these ants. And these ants never eat, they just keep moving. They don't die, just keep moving. And they move for thousands and thousands of years. Well, I could look at those ants and give you a reading, just like I can with the planets. It's just that the planets are more regular orbits that are more observable, where you can't easily discern the patterns of the ants. But what we're measuring is the wind behind the windmill and not the windmill. That's how astrology works. God somehow puts out his energies, his archetypal energies, that makes the seasons change in some regularity. And that same force field is what makes us. Now, the fact that you can look at people and look down to their Mars retrograde and figure out all this other stuff is just unbelievable. It's just mind-blowing how accurate it is. And the fact that it even works, and I told John, it works backward. Solar fire allows you to flip on a switch. It's called converse. Instead of knowing where you are at 50 years of age, they show you where the planets were minus 50. And it works just as well. That really blows your mind. And with that, I will leave you, because I'll leave you all confused, which is what I wanted to do. So now you can all get ready to get unconfused as I take a week off next week with the Reverend Greg King here, and it will be first come, first serve. He usually gives you about 5 minutes or so. He's a really good medium. He's been doing it. He's a 5th generation out of Lilydale, and I will see you then. And I hope you picked up something tonight. I hope you picked up something moving around and make some sense out of it.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, everybody.
We'll be moving everything around on our chart.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, everyone.
Good week.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, John.
Food.
Happy birthday, John.
Happy birthday.
John.
Happy birthday. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.